In our second edition of the Jumpseat live stream. We are super excited to bring you something new for this edition as we are this time welcoming a real-life air traffic controller. Today for this edition, we are delighted to have Aldo Benitez. Aldo is the North America Assistant Director and ATC Operations Coordinator, but also is the AL Training Manager for IVAO. He joined IVAO in 2005 and completed a colleague degree in ATC. Being now in training at the FAA, Aldo confirmed that a lot of his skills learned on IVAO helped his career in real life. He is an hardcore aviation enthusiast, currently doing flight lessons for his private pilot lessons in a Cessna 152. In real life, he is an air traffic controller in Washington, controlling a radar position. For the next 60 to 90 minutes, we will be following Aldo as he controls his real-life airspace, guiding us through what he does on the scope. Feel free to interact with him and ask him questions through the chats, either on Discord or YouTube. Depending on how busy Aldo will be, he will try to answer as much questions as he can. It's your time to ask about the FAA procedures. So without further ado, I'll hand it over to Aldo, and I wish you all a pleasant stay with us in the jump seat.
Okay, thank you, Brandon, for the nice introduction. Yeah, again, my name is Aldo Benitez. I've been here on IVAO for a very long time, and like Brandon mentioned, IVAO pretty much helped me a lot into getting where I am right now as a controller. So, I want to give back to the community, do whatever I can, maybe inspire some others to pursue a piloting career or even air traffic control. And today in this stream, we want to show the ATC side of IVAO. So yeah, IVAO Public Relations had the idea to have me host the first session, and maybe we can do other airports around the world in the upcoming months. I think it's a pretty cool idea to see what's actually going on while most of the users are flying, how ATC is set up, how we coordinate in the background, how we as a controller have a bigger picture, and how we can help during events, all that sort of stuff. So today I'm going to control, answer questions anyone has, explain certain things, maybe also talk about differences between procedures in the United States versus the rest around the world, because there are some big differences at some points. And yeah, that will be pretty much how the stream will go for the next hour to hour and a half. And as of now, I can already see we have one inbound currently controlled by Washington Center, KLM 651 Heavy, and once he gets handoff, we can actually start vectoring him to the ILS. Today I'm also supported by, as I mentioned, Washington Center, and we also have clearance delivery and ground control at Dulles International Airport online. And we have Toronto Center nearby, so that will help light us up on the map a little bit more. And I think Tower will also come online shortly, so that's very cool. Alright, so let me get settled here. So hello to everyone in chat, hello to YouTube chat, Discord. I'm trying to catch up on the questions. Yeah, give me a few seconds if I have to catch up, because I have to read two at the same time. I'm also assisted by moderators from IVAO support staff. They will gladly help out if there's any questions regarding technical stuff, website links, that sort of questions you can ask, and then they will try to help as soon as possible.
Handoff requested.
Alright, there we go. Center just handed off KLM 651 Heavy. Currently descending 14,000. And I believe, yeah, he's on the Hyper 8 arrival. So actually, to make my life easier, I can highlight the arrival here. 1 second. Here we go. So this is the Hyper 8 arrival in $2.
Atomic, good day. This is the KLM 651, 140, 0,000 feet on the Hyper 8 arrival.
KLM 651 Heavy Potomac approach hello. Continue descent as published.
Roger, we descend as published, KLM 651.
So currently at dollars, the wind is actually at 220 and 6 knots. So in that case, we probably can use south operations. Let me first double check with my teammates here. Okay. I'll coordinate that in the ATC chat. And then I can just verify which runway I want to assign to the KLM. And we probably can go with 19er left. So let me try to bring up the chart here. So this is IAD. And as you can see, this will be 19er left. We actually have 3 runways available. In real life, mostly they use the eastern one and the center one. The one to the west is either for cargo or as an overflow runway. It's rarely used, obviously, because it's a very long taxi time. And this perpendicular runway is usually just used for departure. So aircraft would depart westbound, while they can have aircraft landing and departing on these parallel runways. So that's the game plan for IAD. Now I can tell KLM 651 what runway to expect. KLM 651, expect ILS runway 09 approach. Correction, ILS 19er left approach.
Roger, expecting 19er left, KLM 651.
At this point I can enter it into the scratch pad so all the controllers know which runway he's arriving. As he's descending, I can probably type in his final altitude 040 since he's descending as published. I can try to bring up the chart as well so you can have a better look. So this is the Hyper 8 arrival again, and he should be around here. So you will have the daddy transition at or above 3000. And then, as I told him earlier, he's descending as published, so he's crossing all these fixes at a certain midpoint with a certain speed. This should be all done via the FMC, so he just has to monitor his performance and adjust accordingly if there's anything. Okay, Ismail asked the question, how many traffics or aircraft do I control on a daily basis? So it depends. If on a slow day it could be like less than 10. If it's busy, you can have between 10 and 20, I would say maybe in a 2-hour session. But it really depends on the location, on the time. Typically it's busy on the weekends. Saturday the highest amount of traffic, obviously. It's really slow on Monday and Tuesday as people have to work or go to school. And then of course we have events where there's really a lot of traffic, where all ATC positions for a certain airport or airports can be staffed, and then everybody has fun, you know, because it's not fun for ATC if there's barely any traffic. So we got another question in YouTube. How close is Aurora to the real radar screen? Currently, it's I would say 70%, because there's a lot of customization with Aurora possible by the user. That means you could, of course, make it realistic as possible. We try to provide real-life radar maps. For example, this is Potomac approach, which is overseeing all the airports in the Washington area. And then there's a Shenandoah sector, which is what you can see right here, which is adjacent to New York Center, and then all the way south. So in that case, it's pretty realistic. We try to follow all the real-life procedures. We try to acquire all the real-life maps. I think that speaks for our video in general. And then, of course, we can customize it with colors. So if you have access to pictures, usually staff tries to provide color schemes that match real-life radars. So in that sense, it can be, you know, realistic as possible. The only thing that might be different is the aircraft data tag, but I think it might be planned that that will be also customizable. Okay, Adam in Discord is asking, can you explain some of the FAA rules and restrictions you have to follow? See here, so one handoff.
Very good evening, aircraft. Good afternoon, Delta 178. 15,000 descending 14,000.
Delta 178 Potomac approach, good day. Continue descent via the Hyper 8 arrival as published. Expect ILS 1 and a left approach.
Descent via the Hyper 8 arrival as published and expect 1 and left, Delta 178.
Perfect. So regarding your question, explaining some of the FAA rules and restrictions. Generally, they're the same as ICAO. It only comes down to how, I would say, phraseology is probably a big difference. Airspace classes is different country by country, so I wouldn't say FAA is totally different than anybody else. I know that every country has certain airspace letters that they can use and assign to their airspace, so that's why you cannot really compare, you know, the airspace. Let's say Class Bravo might be a different type of airspace in another country. But generally in the United States, also in Canada, we have major airports, we have moderate, and then we have minor. So Class B is for all the major airports. I think it's roughly 30 or 33. Then we have Class Charlie, which is, they are all rated by aircraft amount per year. And then we have Class Delta, which are the most towered airports. And then we have Class Echo, which is pretty much all the other airspace and uncontrolled airfields around the United States. Canada also, again, has different labels for their airspace, so that's another topic, which I think it's a bit more confusing. But generally, it's structured similar. Okay, another question from Robert. Hello, Aldo. Thanks for a lot for your time. Actually, one second. Let me clear him for the ILS. KLM 651 Heavy, you're 11 miles from Daddy. Maintain 3000 until established. Cleared ILS. Runway 19 left approach.
Okay, so the answer is yes. Thank you very much. We maintain 3000 upon reaching cleared ILS 19 left. KLM 651.
Okay, so Robert is asking, Aldo, thanks a lot for your time. I have one question. IVAO, we are controlling many positions and many FIRs in many countries. Does it in real life ATC one day can take approach, another day center, and another day tower, or even ground? and totally does it allow to have certification, etc., for being able to control a different FIR such as Washington or Atlanta and so on. So short answer is no. At least for the FAA in the United States, you get drafted or picked up. You go to the academy for initial training. But even before you start your training, you get a letter. It tells you either you're going to be working as a tower controller with the option to be a approach controller later on, or you're going to be en route center controller your entire career. So even before you start the academy, you start, for example, in en route. You go through the en route training at the academy, and then you get assigned to a center somewhere in the United States. You have a few options depending what's available, what kind of slots are available, and then you start your training. You train sector by sector, so in that sense you cannot switch to a local facility. However, if you are picked as a tower controller, obviously you get placed at a smaller airport. 1 second. KLM 651, heavy contact Dallas Tower 120.25. Have a good day.
Switching Dallas Tower 120.205. Thank you very much. KLM 651, ciao.
KLM 651, frequency 120.25.
120.2050. Thank you, bye.
Yeah, you can start as a tower controller, and then after a couple of years you can apply for approach control training, which there's no way to fail it. You just go back to the academy, you go through the initial training, you signed off, and then you actually work both. You can work tower, and the next week you can work approach control. This is called internally as an up and down facility, because you're up in the tower and then you're downstairs in the basement for approach control. Lucas asked in Discord if I could talk about any real life experience where we had to face abnormal situation like emergency. What did we do? So far I never had one. I know a few coworkers maybe had some emergencies where the aircraft had to just get down as soon as possible, but not anything crucial in that sense. You know, they just ask for assistance nearest airport and then pretty much just get vectors down there. So in that sense, we thankfully never had any serious emergency. I can tell a story probably from my trainer at the academy. He used to work as a en route controller in Anchorage Center, which is all the airspace above Alaska. And there's actually a YouTube clip of a KLM flight that has, I think, icing on the wing, and they're actually tumbling down, I don't know, 6,000 feet per minute, just rotating down, and then you can hear the pilots on the frequency kind of getting loud and trying to tell the controller what's happening, and then they were able to actually regain control. I believe they flew through some sort of ash that kind of, you know, messed with the plane. But yeah, that I never had those kind of stories. On YouTube, we got the question: is IAD a STARS Tricon? Yes, it is. So in the United States, the equipment that handles all the approach controllers facilities is called STARS. I think it means Standard Terminal Arrival Radar System. And this is where we got the map from. It's pretty much just a map that has text coordinates where each line starts and where it ends. And yeah, that's pretty much exact map from that STARS system. There's actually also a star simulator tool out there that you can buy and you can practice, which is actually one-to-one copy. It's pretty cool. But I've never personally or in real life worked on stars. As a center controller, we have a different system called ERAM, ERAM, which stands for En Routes Automation Modernization. It's totally different. It has a different look to it. So it's developed by two different companies. These two systems. Okay, another question on YouTube. Why do you have to say the distance from a point to clear him for the ILS? This is actually procedure by the FAA. You give him the distance to the final approach fix, any altitude he should maintain, speed or heading if needed, and then the clearance for the ILS with the runway number. And yeah, this is actually one big topic, or big difference between what we usually get if you fly around the world, where you just get the phrase Delta 178 clear ILS 19 left. Over here it's different. You have to give these specifics, which takes some timing because the phrase can get long, and then you also have to hear the repack. Delta 178, you're 4 miles from Lady. Maintain 4000 until established. Clear ILS runway 19 left approach.
Delta 178, you're very quiet. Could you please say again that?
Delta 178, you're 4 miles from Lady. Maintain 4000 until established. Clear ILS 19 left.
Okay, yeah, that's 1 left and maintain 4000 until established. Delta 178.
Okay, another question. When you inform a pilot about possible pilot deviation, as we watch in videos, what happens after that to the pilot, and what if he did not call you later? So usually we give a couple of hints if there's a pilot deviation. If it's a serious issue, I don't know, let's say cleared ILS or certain restriction, that's actually important to maintain a certain altitude, then we actually officially file a pilot deviation report, and that is actually a serious problem, because then it goes to the FAA, and then they investigate the pilot and they ask him, why did you deviate from the instruction? But that's how so far that's probably the worst case scenario. Probably can also get serious if you, as a VFR pilot, enter Class Bravo airspace. Remember, that's like the airspace around big airports, because for this you need actually an ATC clearance to enter, exit, or transition. So if ATC, it could be tower or approach, tells you to remain clear of Class Bravo, they give you a certain instruction, let's say maintain VFR 4000 or above, but you enter or you fly at 2000, you probably enter the tower airspace and Class Bravo. This is a pilot deviation. Worst case, F-16s or F-18 get scrambled from the Department of Defense to intercept you, because they're either not responding or acknowledging ATC. And then they will intercept and try to guide you to an airport to land, and then get the pilot deviation report. Delta 178, contact Dallas Tower 120.25.
Tower 12025, Delta 178, goodbye.
So another question we have is, when vectoring traffic, how do you predict where the traffic is going to intercept the localizer? That's a good question. Of course, you can apply math and try to calculate speed, distance over time, all that stuff. However, in the end, it comes down to eyeballing, because you get some experience, at certain speeds how fast the aircraft can turn. The slower the aircraft, the tighter the turn gets. So I'm trying to think if I can show that. If I have an aircraft, yeah, this is a good example. This transition right here for a north landing, I think would be runway 1 right. They're coming yak to FICON, and then this right turn, right? Like, should I give them a right of 280 and then another right to intercept? Again, depends on the speed. If he's doing 180 knots or 170, which is like the minimum, yes, you would give him a 280, because he's going to fly really slow, and then another right turn of 30 degrees or less to intercept. However, if he's doing 250, you can give him a turn of, I would give him a turn of 350 degrees, and by the time he's done turning, he's almost over here. So it would be actually a perfect fit to intercept. You can also probably expect aircraft to fly 220 knots. In real life, nobody flies 250 that close to the ILS. They usually know what they're doing and kind of know their speeds that they have to be at a certain distance from the runway. The question we have: are there any good practices for tower approach controllers,
Handoff
not
requested.
FAA specific? Yes, there's a lot of tools. There are web browser websites where you can practice air traffic control, and like I mentioned earlier, there's a few software applications where you can practice air traffic control. We could probably maybe post a forum link. I can write it down and then let you know. I just don't want to do it right now on the live stream, but there's a couple of pretty cool tools that we can use. Like you mentioned, non-FAA specific. There's some that are simulating US airports, but there's also others that have London control and all the fun stuff. Okay, I almost forgot to hand them off. So we have United 1968 inbound, Southwest 28 to 32, coming from the west.
Approach United 1963 is with you 14,000 inbound mostly.
Yeah, 1963 Potomac approach. Good day. Descend and maintain 8,000. Expect ILS 19 left.
8,000 expect LS 19 left for United 1963.
Alright, a few updates here on the ATC side. We have now Kennedy approach online and New York Center. Yeah, that's pretty neat. So if I zoom out here quickly, you can see this entire area is Washington Center. It's pretty big actually. So that's 400 miles across. In real life, it's divided into 5 areas. Actually, any center in the United States is divided into areas, and then each area is further divided into sectors. That's for en route. And then up here we have New York, where over here is New York City, and this little chunk is Boston Center for en route traffic transitioning in and out. This is Cleveland Center, and I think, yeah, this is Indianapolis, and it keeps going. This is Jacksonville, and that's Atlanta Center. And this purple line out here, I hope you can see that, that's actually Potomac Tracon. So the Tracon itself is almost like a mini center, 180 miles across. Again, multiple areas with, then again, tiny sectors of each area.
Handoff requested.
Okay, we got another handoff. This is the Southwest, also on the Gibbs 4 arrival.
Potomac approach, good evening, Southwest 2832.
Southwest 2832, boss. Correction, Washington Center. Descend maintain 12,000. Expect vectors ILS 19 left.
1,000, expecting LS 19 left, Southwest 2832.
Alright, pulling up Gibbs 4 arrival. This is where those two guys are at right now. This is Mosley and Thames, so I can as well tell him to descend via the arrival. And at 1633, continue descent via Gibbs 4 arrival. This is the second part of the arrival. Once they cross Gibbs, they either go north or they go south since I told him he can expect 1 hour left, he can program his FMC with the MAD-C transition. United 1963 Potomac.
Right for 1963.
United 1963, you can continue descent via the Gibbs for arrival.
Continue descending via the jeeps for arrival for 1963.
Southwest 2832, continue descent via Gibbs for arrival.
Continue descent via Gibbs for arrival, Southwest 2832.
Okay, according to the chart, they would be 7,000 roughly at Gibbs, and then from there on they need further altitude down. I'm going to turn off the other arrival as we don't need it right now. There we go. Okay, another question we have: in case of total communication loss, squawking 7600, shall the pilot proceed and land at the planned arrival airport by himself, herself? If not, what is the procedure? Yes, pilot essentially has to continue their flight plan. That's why there's also an alternate airport that has to be filed. So air traffic control essentially will make way for the aircraft. Let's say United 1963 squawking 7600. Everybody knows what's up. Also, if he's not responding, internally we call him a NORAD, which means no radio. So we call any facility the aircraft is going to enter, any sector airspace, we tell him simply United 1963 NORAD and then hang up after he says okay. And then the aircraft can descend. So as the flight plan would say, he would continue via the Gibbs for arrival, he would fly the arrival and then intercept the ILS and land, and probably at the airport you have law enforcement or whatever he needs standing by. So yeah, in that case, pilot pretty much just proceeds and continues to land. That is the ideal way. This way air traffic control knows what's up instead of just deviating and trying to land at a random airport. Another question we have: explain what does descent via the arrival means. I will answer that in a minute. Okay, he's 7,000. Clear that out. He's also going to 7. Okay, let me try to pull up this chart. So, like I said previously, if I say call sign cleared via the Gibbs for arrival, this means that, at least in the United States, an aircraft coming from Morgantown VOR, usually it happens before they even enter the arrival. So he gets told by MROC controller, call sign, cleared via the Gibbs for arrival, Morgantown transition, descent as published. So he will cross all the waypoints that are in here as published. So he can cross IROI between these flight levels, then the next waypoint between these flight levels at this speed, since it says below and above 280 knots. Going all the way down here, fast man at 7,000, and then Gibbs, I think after that there's no altitude restriction. But essentially he has to hit all the waypoints, and the FMC usually does that, so pilots don't have to worry that much. They just have to monitor the systems. United 1963, descend and maintain 3,000.
3,000, 1963.
And United 1963, Dallas altimeter 3009er.
3009er, altimeter for 1963, thank you.
Okay, seems like we have already good amount of departures leaving Dallas Airport. So we can also have a look at departure procedures and if there's any questions regarding that, since that's also quite different than what we usually expect flying around the world. Okay, let's see. So United 1963, he's doing 240 knots. If he maintains that speed, and he probably will only slow down once he's intercepting, then I can actually give him a 1 right turn, which will fit perfectly on the ILS.
Incoming chat message.
Southwest 2832, descend and maintain 3000.
Descend and maintain 3000, Southwest 2832.
So this is the approach shot for ILS 1 on the left. Here I can always double check what's the altitude, to intercept. So again, Daddy at 3000.
Incoming chat message.
I can activate fixes, and now I can find it on my map here, marked up here. So in that case, I can probably actually extend his turn a little bit, so he has space to intercept. United 1963, continue present heading. I call your turn.
Stand by.
So that's also a good point. In case this happens where there's no instruction received prior to the end of the arrival, usually aircraft should continue unless it's specified to intercept. In this case, he probably should continue straight ahead. I'm still waiting because he said he's told me to stand by. We'll see. He's probably busy. I don't expect him to just start turning. However, it can happen. So as ATC, you should always be prepared. Never know. So right now we're just waiting. See, I can turn on his speed vector. Oh. United 1963, turn right heading 100.
Confirm left 100.
Negative, turn right 100.
Right 100 for United 1963.
Okay, now we can see he slowed down to 220 knots. So right now I gave him a turn to be perpendicular to the ILS, and then roughly if he's around here, I can give him a 150, 155 to intercept before Daddy.
Handoff requested.
Then one United 1963. You're 5 miles from Daddy. Turn right heading 170. Cleared ILS 19 left approach. Maintain 3000 until established.
Right, 170 and clear for the LS 19 left, United 1963.
Potomac approach, good evening. American to Charlie Hotel, passing 15,000, descending 14,000, inbound Iggy.
American 2 Charlie Hotel, Potomac approach, good afternoon. Continue descent via Gibbs for arrival. Runway 19 left. Dallas altimeter 3009er.
Descent via Gibbs for arrival 19 left, 3009 altimeter, American to Charlie Hotel.
Okay, another question we have is how to become an air traffic controller. Generally, you probably apply to your government. Either it's a government company or the government itself. In this case, in the United States, it's the federal. It's the FAA. In Canada, it's NAV Canada, which is a non-profit private company. So, but they're run by the government. Anyway, you apply. If you're lucky, you get placed. In the United States, you have to pass a few tests that are done locally in a couple of cities around you, usually. Once you pass that test, which is just based on skills, do some math. If you can vectors balls around a little screen, see how you can handle all that stuff. You get a letter, and then you get invited to the academy, and they will call you and pick a class date, and then you have 2 to 3 month training. Southwest 2832, continue present heading.
Present heading, Southwest 2832.
United 1963, contact Dallas Tower 120.25.
Tower 120.25, thank you.
Yeah. So once you get accepted for training, you go through that training. Like I mentioned earlier, you can be assigned to either be en route controller or tower controller, and this is probably the biggest hurdle. Once you're at the academy, you get trained every day to go into the lab, run the simulator, ATC exercises. They have pseudo pilots or remote operating pilots that are sitting in another room. They handle the virtual aircraft that you're talking to over the radio. And then the last day you have an evaluation. 1 second here. Southwest 2832, turn right heading 110.
Right heading 110, Southwest 2832.
So at the evaluation you have 3 runs, and each has to be above 70% roughly, and then however you can fail one eval as long as you have maybe 90 or 100 on the other 2, then you can still pass. So there's a lot of tricky math involved, but once you pass that eval, which is usually only 30% of the class, so let's say you start with like maybe 17 people, 4 to 5 people actually make it through, and you go into this little room where they give you lists where you can pick the facility. So they say, okay, here's like 10 facility, which one you want to go to out of hundreds of facilities. And then once you do that, once you have that step completed, you're pretty much settled in. Then of course you have local training at your facility, which you can still fail, but the rate is very low, so it's maybe 1 or 2 people out of 100 if it's really bad. But usually the local facility is easier than the academy. The academy is hard on purpose to filter out people that are not going to be able to control in case there's a high volume of traffic. Another question, are you ATC in real life? Yes, I went to the academy and I was assigned NROC controller for Washington Center. Southwest 2832, you're 4 miles from Daddy. Maintain 3000 established. Heading 160, cleared ILS 19 left approach.
Right, heading 160, 3000 first capture, clear the LS 19 left approach, Southwest 2832.
Okay, so we have a text pilot here. Give him his final. Okay, so I pretty much just told him to climb a bit higher, and then we'll hand him off to center. In this case, Tower just forgot to hand him off, but I can also still assume.
Message on primary.
Okay, so Southwest is intercepting now. Our arrow van is now above American, which is good. This is actually the important part between departure procedures and arrivals. As we can see, generally for this airport, arrivals come from either the sides, and then they fly parallel. And that's why they should maintain 7,000, because departures go up to, I think, 5,000. You know, unless controller clears them higher or lower. But generally, this is the whole design behind them, so they don't interfere with their paths until they're clear.
Incoming chat message.
So I can hand them off to center. I have to make sure it's in my list. Activating this little radar icon. Transfer. So I want to make sure I transfer him way before he reaches his cleared altitude, so he doesn't level out. In this case, he calls center, and then as he's still climbing, center can clear him higher. As we can see, there's no other traffic around him. Southwest 2832, contact Dallas Tower 120.25.
Dallas Tower 120, small 25, Southwest 2832, thank you, bye-bye.
American 2 Charlie Hotel, descend and maintain 3000.
Handoff approved.
Descend and maintain 3000, American to Charlie Hotel.
Okay, very nice. So we got these guys lined up. That's actually pretty, it's hard to see as an ATC perspective, but it's a pretty cool view for the Southwest to see, you know. Being number 2, you have a guy that's 7 miles ahead, plenty of time. You can actually crop it down to probably, he's a 737 behind a 737. We could actually go down to 3.5 miles as long as they kind of perform the same on the arrival. So you'll see him land, you'll see the other traffic at the terminal. By the time he vacated, he's still probably 1 to 2 miles out. So next we have a couple of inbounds, maybe 1 or 2 from the northeast. Okay, question we have right now, is IVAO ATC and real life ATC different? I would say yes. Of course, IVAO ATC is trying to base everything on real life ATC. However, at some point, it could overcomplicate things if we get too realistic. But generally, I would say they're probably 80%, 90% the same. Of course, I would say the only difference is maybe sectorizations, you know, air traffic control, airspace. It can be simplified. For example, we actually have an advantage if we combine certain areas instead of having everything single. Washington Center is never one single center in real life. It's hundreds of frequencies, or maybe tens of frequencies, divided into areas just to cover the traffic volume. Obviously, IVAO is almost operating as if it's nighttime in real life. So this would be traffic, I don't know, maybe at 3 in the morning at night. So in that case, in real life, they also combine frequencies, but they would never combine this much, you know, in real life.
Approach Kilo United 11 Echo Alpha, passing level 195 for 14,000.
United 11 Echo Alpha, Potomac approach, good afternoon. Continue descent via Hyper 8 arrival, runway 19 left.
Continue descent via Hyper 8 arrival for 19 left, United 11 Echo Alpha.
So I was being told that this aircraft currently is not responding, therefore that's why we see it so high and so close to the airport. Yeah, we'll see what we do about this. We had Newark Center online earlier, trying to get in touch, but not responding. Happens, but currently it's not really interfering with any traffic we have, so we'll see. United is descending via Hyper 8 arrival again, and American, I'm just waiting until he's a beam daddy, and then yeah, maybe one other mile further. I have enough space to let him fly perpendicular and then intercept for the others. Okay, southwest landing now. Slowing down a little bit for a moment. Okay, another question. What is your preferred handoff technique? Full frequency, for example, for Dallas Tower, would you say Tower 2025? Yeah, I would say full frequency. So, you know, as I heard earlier, I would say American 2 Charlie Hotel, contact Dallas Tower 120.25. In real life, occasionally, you can also hear that they just say contact Tower 120.25. And then for ground, you can actually officially abbreviate the frequency. So if he would be landing, Tower would be saying to American 2 Charlie Hotel, contact ground 0.625 or 0.9er, which is very common. That's the only time where you shorten the handoff phraseology. American 2 Charlie Hotel, continue present heading.
Continue present heading, American 2 Charlie Hotel.
Okay, this is a good question. In real life, transfers between center and other facilities do you use voice to inform the next air traffic controller about the traffic? Or if not, how is the procedure done? So for en routes, if it's standard route, you know, let's say they're coming from the west, they are handled by the center controller, and then they obviously have to start descending for the arrival. There is a standard operating procedures, and then there's within those are letters of agreements where both the approach control facility and the en route facility agree on a certain waypoint with a certain altitude for a certain type of traffic to be handed off at a certain time. So, no, to reduce coordination. American 2 Charlie Hotel, turn right heading 100.
Right heading 100, American 2 Charlie Hotel.
This reduces the coordination. If there's anything that has to be coordinated with another facility, we have multiple ways. One way is called a shout line. So each controller station has a little display on the side that's just for radio communication. I can press any button that is linked to pretty much a lot of facilities. And that, let's say I have a button to call Shenandoah Approach, right, as a center. So I can tell him, American 2 Charlie Hotel, has issues descending, and he usually just says his initials and then hangs up, which means he understands the message, and that's how you would coordinate that. American 2 Charlie Hotel, fly heading 1. Correction. You're 5 miles from Daddy, fly heading 150. Maintain 3000 until established. Clear Dallas 19 left.
Heading 150 down 2000 and maintain until established, American 2 Charlie Hotel.
Another way to communicate point outs is, for example, happens a lot where you have an aircraft that's crossing a certain corner of another controller's airspace. So instead of handing him off here and then getting him back here, you just give a point out. You can do voice communications via that radio comms panel. However, what we usually do is we just flash a point out. So in real life, the data tag would flash or would have a message like PO, and then this controller knows, okay, he's just flying through. If there's traffic, he would actually call you back, and he would request a handoff, so you can vector him or give him a new altitude. But if there's usually no traffic, since you can see that, then it's just marked as a point out and then taken off, and then he resumes his airspace as normal. So yes, not many ways to coordinate, but essentially we have a radio communications panel where we can just quickly call someone with a touch of a button. So question, why don't you want pilots to level out? It's just, I think not necessary essentially. You want them to level out if there's traffic, obviously. Let's say they're climbing to 5,000 on the departure and you have arrivals at 6,000 or 7,000. Then yes, he has to cross their paths. You want them to level out, and then once he's clear, you can continue climb. However, if there's no arrival, if there's no traffic in the vicinity, we tend to actually in real life hand off as soon as possible. Let's say he comes from tower, departure has the aircraft, and there's no traffic around. Departure just gives him a new altitude and handoffs as soon as possible, since there's no way, no reason to keep him longer, right? Maybe he flies to 8,000, then gets handed off to center, and then center has him for the rest of the flight. American 2 Charlie Hotel, contact Dallas Tower 120.25.
Dallas Tower 120.25, American 2 Charlie Hotel, bye bye.
Bye bye. On IVAO, the leveling out is just to, it's not really necessary. It happens, of course, because you have to kind of learn how fast an aircraft can actually climb, especially on departures. They climb really fast, so you have to give them a high enough altitude and hand off early enough so they don't level out while they're waiting for the next controller to actually acknowledge them and could tell them to continue climb. What is your ATC position? I work en route, and then I work the low altitude sectors. However, we work in rotation multiple sectors. So we work the low en route sectors over the Washington area over here. Usually once you start as a center controller, you get assigned to a certain area, and then you stay there unless you want to switch. Do you have Mode S surveillance in real life as Aviados, or do you correlate via squawk codes still? We have both. They're still rolling it out currently. Actually, one of the first centers was Anchorage over Alaska. They had like as a testing facility because their traffic volume is not so high compared to all the others. And right now the FAA is still rolling it out. However, it's a big project since all the aircraft are now required to have it installed by a certain year, I think 2025 or something. So it's kind of, we're in limbo. So yes, we have it, but it's not required, and we still use transponder codes to assign or to identify aircraft. Put up so everybody knows. Okay. Okay, so this is a cool example of a Aurora collision alert. However, as we can see, this is called a no factor. He's descending opposite direction and he's climbing, and they're actually diverging. Their course is diverging, which means they're getting bigger, right? Would be a problem if you would fly like this. Then obviously you would kind of handle that, but this is just fine.
Handoff requested.
United is also on a good path. This is something always to monitor. Some pilots or some aircraft make it hard to descend on profile. On profile meaning
Approach
matching the
good day,
altitudes.
American 73 Delta Hotel at 3,000 feet.
American 73 Delta Hotel. Potomac approach radar contact. Climb maintain 17,000.
Say again for the American 73 Delta Hotel.
American 73 Delta Hotel. Climb and maintain 17,000.
Climb maintain 170, American 73 Delta Hotel.
Okay, now I'm gonna go with the United his ILS clearance. Again, measuring the distance to
Incoming chat message.
Lady, and then give the long ILS clearance. So this is roughly 6 miles. United 11 Echo Alpha, you're 6 miles from Lady. Maintain 4,000 until established. Cleared ILS, runway 19 left approach.
Cleared for the LS, runway 19 left, maintain 4,000 until established. United 11 Echo Alpha.
So this is a cool example where actually I don't have the aircraft very long. This is the boundary of my approach airspace, so I can hand him off to. In real life, it would be the other approach sector, right? Because he's still kind of low. But leaving my lateral boundaries. But since Sander is online, I'm gonna hand him off. American 73 Delta Hotel, contact Washington Center 134.15.
Handoff approved.
134.150, American 73 Delta Hotel, bye bye.
Cool. So we have good amount of departures actually going out. Very nice. He just landed, and then we have United on final. United 11 Echo Alpha, contact Dallas Tower 120.25.
Dallas Tower 2025, bye. United 11 Echo Alpha.
Handoff approved.
Okay, another question we have. If your top of descent is before center, can you start descending without permission? I think what the question is, let's say you're on the arrival, but the top of descent starts before you actually are in the airspace. Can you start descending? And the answer is yes. Please do so. You don't have to wait for the controller. What we usually tend to do is we wait if the pilot is ready for descent, or if he gets kind of close, and then we know, okay, the pilot is awaiting the controller for the descent instruction. But yes, you can totally start descending on your own. It avoids a lot of hassle, because once you miss your top of descent, everything gets pushed back, right? You're not gonna miss. I mean, you're not gonna hit all the certain restrictions if it's an on-ramp arrival. You're getting too fast. You have to deploy speed brakes. Yeah, you're just not gonna hit all the restrictions, especially speed restrictions. So you're gonna come down really fast, really high. Sometimes it ends up being a holding or extended vectors. Just a mess, right? But yeah, you can do anything before you enter controlled airspace.
Handoff requested.
Okay, next we have West Hills.
West Hills 118 after departure, runway 190 left.
West Hills 118. Radar contact, climb maintain 17,000. Continue Jacobi for departure.
Say again for West Hills 118, please.
West Hills 118. Climb and maintain 17,000. Continue Jacobi for departure.
Climb and maintain 1700. West Hills 118.
So this is actually a good point that that you might have noticed. In the US, our transition level and transition altitude is at 180. So anything below that is actually a local altitude, not local altitude, local altimeter in altitude. So, for example, in this case, I told him to climb to 17,000, and notice it's not flight level 170, because anything below 180 is still adjusted to the local altimeter, which means 3009. Now, why is it so high? Because the highest point in the United States airspace is somewhere in Alaska. Yes, I think something about 7,000 feet, 17,000. So they keep it all on the same, everywhere. We just have this one permanent transition level and altitude. Compared to other countries where it depends on the local pressure, it gets adjusted, and then you also have this transition layer, which we do not have in the United States. It's all at 180. This is obviously different. You notice a lot of pilots have this habit of saying anything that's above 10,000 feet is flight level 100, right? Or even lower. But it's all good. Okay, next, besides departures, we're gonna have this American as arrival. The troops 4 arrival. Troops 4 is actually a pretty cool arrival. Let me pull it up. Once we have a look at the waypoints, if I can find it. Oh no, never mind. That's for the other airport, but I can still show it. Okay, I think that's for DCA airport.
Handoff requested.
And if I pull up the second page, right here. So actually, this was designed after 9/11, and to pay tributes to the, I guess, the armed forces of the United States. They named the waypoints. They give them actually some phrases. You have to kind of pick them out, but you see the Navy SEALs, Ranger, Jarhead. I think that's US Air Force or USA. We do support.
Automatic approach, Delta 1079 on I-5 to Atlanta is at 3,000 feet.
Delta 1079, Potomac approach, radar contact, climb maintain 17,000. Delta 1079, Potomac approach, radar contact. Climb maintain 17,000. Okay, I guess you need some time. But yeah, anyway, it's almost phrases, so USA, we do support our troops. I think it keeps going here. Troops again. Freedom, stand together. And then let's roll.
Primary.
Victory, hero. So this is pretty cool to see, because usually those waypoints are just, you know, random letters that you can kind of pronounce, but they made it into phrases you can actually read while you fly. That's pretty neat. Okay, I'm gonna hand off West Hills now. He's high enough. West Hills 118, contact Washington Center 134.15.
Handoff approved.
Okay, next question. Do you think IVAO is more beginner friendly? I would say so, yes. Since it's free, I think there's
Climb and maintain 17,000 feet, Delta 1079. Thank you.
it's really helpful, you know, to actually apply for training, to get very professional training at no cost. You get guidance. There's always help available. We have Discord chat with live feedback. We have a forum. You can always ask fellow controllers, and we can see who's new or, you know, who's experienced. In that sense, I would say, yeah, it's very friendly. I like it.
Automatic approach, hello United 224, Hyper 8 arrival passing well 4000.
United 224, Potomac approach, continue descent via Hyper 8 arrival, runway 19 left.
Until descent by the Hyper 8 arrival, expect runway 19 left, United 224.
So I'm gonna hand off Delta now, since there's no traffic ahead. Delta 1079, contact Washington Center 134.15.
Handoff approved.
Contact Washington Center, Delta 1079. Thank you.
Since it's kind of slow right now, I can briefly talk about the topic that's we have talked about earlier briefly, which is called in US PTAC, which stands for Procedure, Turn, Altitude, and Clearance. This is what is so different from ICAO procedures. This is pretty much a synonym that we can use as a reminder. The clearance that an aircraft
Handoff
receives.
requested.
Departure hello, Frontier 539A. Climbing up to 3000.
Roger, flight 539, Potomac approach, radar contact, climb and maintain 17,000.
Sorry, that was very low. Say again the altitude?
Roger, flight 539, climb and maintain 17,000.
Up to 17,000, Frontier 539.
yeah, PTAC, procedure, turn, altitude, and clearance. So this can be applied for ILS clearance, a VOR clearance, or a RNAV approach, GPS. Yeah, let me see here. So the first letter P stands for position. That's why we tell them the distance. So it could be, anywhere around here. Usually you want to keep it less than 10 miles. You don't have to give a clearance if he's like 20 miles out. You can, but usually it's around 10 or less. So position is the first one. You tell him 10 miles from that waypoint or 5 miles from the waypoint. T stands for turn if it's needed. So you can tell him fly heading 230. However, you don't have to give the turn. Obviously, if he's just on the right heading, Altitude, you tell him the altitude that he has to maintain until established. And then C stands for clearance. You give him the approach clearance. Could be ILS, RNAV, VR, and so on. Again, this is different already in Canada, where you just tell them cleared ILS, 1 left, for example. Okay, another question. Could you please explain the difference between climb and maintain? So that's a good question. That's also a difference we hear often. So we're required to say climb and maintain to imply that the aircraft is clear to climb to the altitude, but he has to maintain. If we would just say, according to the FAA, right, in their perspective, if we just say climb 17,000, it does not imply that the aircraft actually has to maintain. So the pilot could continue climb. In order to avoid that, we always say climb and maintain or descend and maintain. Again, in Canada, that phrase is not used. It is just climb or descent. Altitude, flight level. If you have a little bit more time, I can also talk about IFR clearances, which are tremendously different than what most are used to. Okay, so for IFR clearance, I will talk in a minute. We use the cinnamon craft.
Departure, good afternoon. American 2707 holding short of 19 left at Washington, D.C. Ready for take departure.
American 2707, this is a Potomac approach. Contact tower 120.25. See you in a minute.
Over departure. Watch tower, my
Okay, let me prepare the the ILS clearance. So again, he's going to intercept a lady, and he's probably 5 miles from here.
Departure, just, I don't know, maybe I missed something. Do I get vectors to Hager, or shall we proceed direct to the flight plan route behind McRae?
Frontier Flight 539, affirmative. You can continue direct McRae, and at this point you can also contact center on 134.15.
134.15 and direct to McRae, Frontier 539. Take care, bye.
United 224, you're 4 miles from Leidy. Maintain 4,000 until established. Cleared ILS 19 left approach.
Handoff approved.
Descent 4000 United established, cleared ILS approach 19 left, United 224.
So we have him. He's gone. He's going to go on the ILS. Then we have American taking off. He's going to Dallas Fort Worth on the
Handoff
clutch 2
requested.
departure. Should be calling any second now.
With you, climbing 1000.
American
Handoff
2707
requested.
Potomac approach, radar contact, climb maintain 17000.
Climb maintain 7000 for American 2707.
American 2707, confirm 17000.
Yes, passing 1700 right now, and flying runway heading.
Yes, confirm that you're clear to climb to 17000.
Potomac approach, good afternoon, United 288, descend 14000, bound Liège.
United 288 Potomac approach, good afternoon. Continue descent via Hyper 8 arrival, runway 19 left.
Continue descend via the Hyper 8, runway 19 left, United 288. Climb maintain 17000 for American 2707.
And American 2707, we clear direct butters, and then continue clutch 3 departure.
Direct butters for American 2707.
United 224, contact Dallas Tower 120.25.
Dollar 512.25, United 224, thank you, good day.
Handoff approved.
Okay, so since we have a minute now, this is what he's flying right now. This is the clutch 2 departure, and this is an interesting one because it's a hybrid. We call it a hybrid, which means it's a combination of 2. Essentially, we have 3 types of departures. We have a radar vector departure where we just get vectors to a fix. We have RNAV departures where pilot just flies completely the FMC, right? And then we have hybrid, which is vectors and then you fly the SID. I'm not sure if that's very common outside of the US. So in this case, they need to wait for ATC to give usually a direct, or some other type of vectors, and then they transition into the en route phase, climbing here. We can also then briefly go over IVAO clearances. I know it's very simplified usually outside of the US, where you just get a, I don't know, American 2707, clear to Dallas, Fort Worth Airport, flight plan route, climb 5000, and then squawk 1234, right? Because everything is contained. Maybe you would mention the departure. Of course, it depends on the local controlling agency. However, in the US, we use this structure called craft, which is first one is clearance, route, altitude, frequency, and transponder. So
Handoff requested.
clearance would be the phrase clear to the airport. Route is usually only the departure. However, ATC can give you a full route clearance, which happens in real life a lot of times because of weather or traffic management. In our case, in IVAO, it's just a departure. So we'd say clutch 2 departure, then as filed. Altitude is, the initial climb usually, and then the expected flight level. So we'll be maintain 3000. Expect flight level. What does he have? 360.
Delta 2130, inbound Bentley descent, passing flight level 1340, descent to, correction, descent to $13,000.
Delta 2130, Potomac approach, roger, maintain 13000.
Over center for American 2707, good afternoon.
See ya. And let me just finish this here. Altitude is initial climb and the final. Frequency, departure frequency, and then of course transponder. So this is what we use as a structure for the IFR departure clearance. It is tremendously longer.
2130.
However, right now in real life they also have
Delta 2130,
text-based.
approach good day, inbound beach lift 501, correction 1000 altitude.
Delta 2130, Potomac approach, roger, maintain 13,000. Okay, he's still descending on the Hyper 8. This guy's coming here. I don't think he's on arrival, so I'll just give him vectors according, to the Gibbs for arrival, roughly. Delta 2130, turn left heading 010.
Turn left heading 010, around.
Actually, seems like he's on the Caval 4. But that's fine.
Handoff requested.
Okay, now we have Lufthansa departing to Frankfurt on the Paris 2 departure. So this is the Jares 2 departure. As you can see, again, it's a hybrid. Initially, they have to make a right turn. They're heading 320, and then expect vectors to I-door, and then they continue this one leg to Jares, and then
Potomac approach, Lufthansa 490 heavy. Departed, 19er center, climb 3000 feet.
So in this case, I don't think he is turning because he's already above 820 feet. So I'll initiate the turn. Lufthansa 419 heavy, radar contact, fly heading 320, climb and maintain 17,000.
Repeat this, please.
Lufthansa 419 heavy, fly heading 320, climb and maintain 17,000.
320, climb maintains 32,000. Lufthansa 490 heavy.
Lufthansa 419 heavy, climb and maintain 17,000.
I'm sorry. Climb maintains 17,000. Lufthansa 490 heavy.
Potomac departure, Hologan, United 224, media approach procedure, passing Cheetahs.
At 224, Potomac approach, radar contact, turn left heading 010, maintain 17,000.
Left heading 010, confirm 7,000 for United 224.
Oh, disregard, climb maintain 4,000.
Climb maintain 4,000, United 224.
Okay, I got confused for a second here. I thought he's departing to JFK, then I noticed, okay, it's actually a go around. He's coming from Kennedy 5 hybrid. Okay, so we just gonna send him parallel on 4,000 and then back on the ILS. Delta's still kind of far away. Left him at 13,000. So it seems like his aircraft is heading 010, but the wind is pushing him, so he's actually crabbing to the right, or drifting to the right. So I can either compensate for that and give him a further left heading, so he flies kind of drifting into the wind, or I just can keep him right since he will probably get one end left anyway. Delta 2130, turn right heading 025. Descend and maintain 8,000.
Traffic 025, descent 8,000 feet, Delta 2130.
Lufthansa 419 heavy, cleared direct I-door intersection, continuous filed.
Direct I-door, Lufthansa 490 heavy.
And United 288, you're 2.5 miles from Leyte. Maintain 4000 until established. Clear ILS 19 left approach.
Maintain 4000 until established, clear for the LS 19 left, United 8288.
Okay, he got the ILS. He's on his way. Gonna hand off him soon. He's now on downwards. United 224, expect vectors ILS 19 left again.
Expect vector ILS approach 19 left again, United 224.
He's gonna go also same path that the United is, descending 8000. Want to make sure he's below any departure coming out of these runways. And Delta 2130, expect ILS 19 left.
Clear for 19 left, Delta 2130.
Handoff requested.
And United 288 will establish on localizer 19 left.
United 288, contact Dallas Tower 120.25.
At 0.25, thank you, bye bye. United 288.
Potomac departure. Potomac departure. Good evening, Delta 4. Via the bus 3, departure 3000.
Delta 4 heavy, Potomac approach, radar contact, climb maintain 17,000.
7000, Delta 4.
Lufthansa 419 heavy, contact Washington Center 134.15.
Washington Center 3415. Lufthansa 490 heavy. Good evening. Delta 4.
Delta 2130, turn a left heading 005.
Traffic heading 005, Delta 2120.
United 224, descend and maintain 3000.
Descend and maintain 3000, United 224.
Delta 2130, descend and maintain 3000.
Descend and maintain 3000 feet. Delta 2120.
Okay, so as you can see, Delta 4, we only give him initial, an altitude, no vectors, because he's on a full honor of departure. So he just, after passing 120 feet, he has to turn to direct TICE and then keep on going. This is pretty useful since that reduces the workload of the controller. Echo can now navigate on themselves. But yeah, if anyone is interested in flying or controlling, don't hesitate. Don't be afraid to call ATC. It's really not hard for us to assist if there's any issues. You can even fly, have questions if you don't understand anything. Also, don't be afraid to ask. Like it can happen where pilots can just ask, can you please say that again slowly, or I didn't understand the altitudes. Yeah, feel free to hop online. You can pull it up. We have this website where you can see who's online. For those that are new, just browse around. You can see, okay, there's a couple of traffic here. Maybe I can do some VFR flying, get some ATC. See also who's online on the left. Pilots, ATC. I think there's also an event section once you log in. But this gives you a great overview of, if you want to participate in some flying where you want to have air traffic control next to you. Always happy to help. United 224, you are 4 miles from Daddy. Turn left heading 230, maintain 3000 until established. Clear LS 19 left.
Left heading 220, maintain 3000 until established. Clear LS approach 19 left, United 224.
Lufthansa 4 heavy, contact Washington Center 134.15.
Departure Center, Delta 4, thank you, Aldo.
Handoff approved.
Okay, so according to my experience, he should be able to intercept. Daddy. It's probably actually in front of Daddy. Izumi. Let's see. Yeah, he will still make it. So Daddy 3000 or Izumi at or above 3000, and then Domzi above 17,000. So Domzi, I think, that's down here. You can see he actually just started on the glide path. So roughly around here is where 3000 is minimum. And yeah, the speed matched the turn, the heading I gave him. So I believe I gave him a heading of 225 or something. So it actually works out perfectly. Delta is coming in good altitude, good speed. Probably has a good view of the airport and the arrivals. Yeah, I think after these two arrivals, after Delta 2130, we're gonna wrap up the stream. If anyone has any questions, please let me know. I'm still here a few minutes. Or maybe we can wait for this threshold. But yeah, feel free to ask any questions you have. United 224, contact Dallas Tower 120.25.
Delta 120.25, United 224, thank you. Good day.
Delta 2130, descend and maintain 1700, speed 200.
Descent 1100 feet and speed to Delta 2130.
Okay, so I will try to get Delta 2130 lower and closer, so we might get him right behind United. It's gonna look pretty cool. I tried to get 3 on the ILS, but they're a bit too far spaced out. But at least this way I can get Delta 2130 to intercept between Izumi and Domzi instead of between Izumi and Daddy. Okay, we got
Atomic
threshold.
approach threshold 101, passing through 14000 for 12000 on the Gibbs 4.
Threshold 101, Potomac approach, good afternoon. Continue descent via Gibbs 4 arrival, runway 19 left.
Descent via Gibbs 4 arrival for runway 19 left, threshold 101.
So as we can see, the moment he starts descending, his speed actually picks up. Probably even if you try to reduce it with your speed brakes, it's not gonna, have that much effect. This has to be kept in mind if you control it. An aircraft actually, either they barely hold the speed or it actually increases. So once he's leveling off, it's gonna reduce since the aircraft is not nosediving anymore. And then we can turn. Delta 2130, you're 6 miles from Domzi. Turn left heading 210, cleared. Maintain 1700 until established, cleared ILS 19 left approach.
American 210, Lapino Tails approach runway 19 left, Delta 2130.
One thing to keep in mind is if we decide to give him this low altitude and this close, is to always keep in mind the obstructions and the minimums. So right now, as you can see, we have MSA of 2500, which is anything outside of the glide path or the approach path. So if he would be over here, right, that's why you give him 3000 to make sure he's above this MSA. But once they go closer to ALS, we can use these altitudes here. And he's slowing down, so it should make that turn tighter.
Tomahawk approach, Delta 4, 12,000, descending 11,000.
Delta 4, roger, turn right heading 100, descend and maintain 4,000.
Right 100, is gonna maintain 4,000, Delta 4 heavy.
Okay, Delta 4 is departing Dallas and comes back. He's doing some practice, so I'll just send him in a big, base leg, pretty much. Give him some space to descend. Okay, Delta, make that perfect turn. Can hand him off the tower soon. At least he can be number 2, and we saved him some space and time as well. Okay, another question we have: is there any equivalent of IVAO's HAL training, which is the artificial aircraft training server? Yes, there is. Well, depends. I mean, there's companies that actually do ATC training software and the tower simulators or the control station simulators, and then depending on the customer, they can request to have remote pilots that control the aircraft via text commands. So if a controller in training would tell them to descend, they would type in descent text, and then the aircraft descends to the altitude, or it's done.
And approach Delta 4.
Delta 4, go ahead.
Delta 4 would like to submit a PIREP.
Handoff approved.
Delta 4, stand by. Delta 2130, contact Dallas Tower 120.25.
Contact tower 120, decimal 250, bye-bye.
Delta 4, go ahead with pirate.
I'd like to report a few to scattered clouds at 8,000 feet. Also light to moderate chop.
Delta 4, pirate has been noted, thank you. So Delta 4, he just did a pilot report, which means he can report weather information, which is in real life very useful. Even though we have all the forecast systems, a pirate is just valued so much higher. Doesn't matter if you're in a small Cessna at 2,000 feet or if you're in an airliner like him at 10,000. If there's any moderate chop, little turbulence or icing, very useful because it gets all put into the system by a controller or his assistant controller, and then we have this giant map where you can see all the pirates on the map, and then you can get a bigger picture of, okay, seems like here's icing at a certain altitude that we didn't forecast. So that's what the Delta pilot did right now. Delta 4, expect runway 19 left. 19
left, Delta 4 heavy.
Yeah, regarding the HAL training, there essentially is software that either you can use voice commands and the simulator responds to it, or use humans as a pilot that type in the command and respond via radio message to make it a bit more realistic, since voice recognition is always a bit tricky to manage. But of course they're more sophisticated, like everything is customizable. They have multiple airports. Their software is one-to-one, like the real one. Delta 4 heavy, you're 6 miles from Daddy. Fly heading 160, maintain 4,000. Correction, maintain 3,000 until established. Clear Dallas 19 left approach.
Right 160, maintain 3,000 until established. Delta 4 heavy.
Approach, good afternoon. Threshold 120 at 140,000.
Threshold 120, Potomac approach. Descend and maintain 8,000. Expect runway 19 left. Continue Gibbs arrival.
Down to 8,000. Expect 19 left and continue Gibbs. Threshold 120.
So in this case, I gave him 8 instead of the published 7 because his descent started later, so he's very fast compared to his buddy. I just want to make sure they might have enough separation laterally, but just in case, I give them 1,000 feet above so they don't interfere with each other. Delta seems to overshoot. Let's give him a heading back here. Delta 4 Heavy, turn right heading 230 to intercept.
Right 230, Delta 4 Heavy.
Okay, question is, what is the minimum altitude we can use to vector traffic around, since there's no minimum vectoring altitude published? What is the reference do you usually use in real life? So it depends on the agency. FAA actually has published MVAs for major airports, but usually it's kept internally for the controllers. We all have radar maps. I don't think we have it in the sector file right now. Let me see. But usually the MVAs are lower than the MSA because a minimum vectoring altitude is based on the radar antenna locally. So this means that the MSA for the approach is always the same. I think MSA is based on obstruction clearance and the reception of a nav aid, right, of a VOR. You want to make sure that at this altitude you always receive the VOR and you always have clearance of obstructions. An MVA is usually much lower because you just want to make sure that you have radar line of sight. You make sure you can get the radar target.
Handoff requested.
Below that altitude, you might lose them because there's an obstruction like a hill or a mountain, right, or a tall building. Delta 4 Heavy, contact tower 120.25.
12025, see you in a minute. Delta 4 Heavy, thank you.
Threshold 101, descend and maintain 3000.
Descend and maintain 3000, threshold 101.
Threshold 101, maintain 250 knots for the moment.
Maintain 250 knots, threshold 1.
Threshold 100, descend and maintain 7000.
Descending 7000, threshold 120.
So right now we gave him 7000. This is the lowest I can use. I'm not allowed to use, let's say, 5000 even though he's descended to 3. I have to make sure that the aircraft in front of him that could be a conflict alert is clear of that altitude. So this means I kind of have to step him down, but hopefully he just keeps on descending smoothly, you know, without leveling off. I'll make sure that he's maintaining 250 at least, so he can slow down in the meantime. Worst case, he just has to continue 1 or 2 miles further behind him to make up the space. That's currently my thought process. At threshold 101, continue present heading.
Continue on present heading for threshold 10.
Threshold 120, continue present heading.
Continue present heading, threshold 120.
So both are told to continue since the arrival ends here. Seems like I missed the handoff here. Give him the ground. So he has him.
Handoff approved.
Threshold 101, turn right heading 100.
Approach, can you please repeat the heading?
Threshold 101, turn right heading 100.
Right heading 100, threshold 1.
At threshold 120, descend and maintain 3000.
Descending 3000, threshold 120, and confirm we're set up for 19 left.
Affirmative, expect ILS 19 left.
Roger that, thing.
Okay, so I gave him 3000 because I know 101 is turning right to diverge from the same course. And by the time he's reaching, let's say 4000, right, 101 is going to be way off already. Then I can turn him back on the ILS. with enough space in between. On threshold 101, speed restriction cancelled.
Speed restriction canceled for threshold 101.
Threshold 101, you're 6 miles from Izumi. Fly heading 160, maintaining 3000 until established. Clear ILS 19 left.
Right heading 160, clear for 3000 feet to the ILS 19 left. Threshold 101.
Threshold 120, turn right heading 150.
Right 150, threshold 1.
Right, so since he's at 265 ground speed, this is already much enough of separation, 6 miles. I don't have to wait, even further, because by the time he's done turning, he's probably going to be up here, so it's going to be 6 or 7 miles. That's enough space for him to slow down without being too slow for him. And by the time he's catching up, he will also slow down. So this should give us maybe 4 or 5 miles for them to play around with the speed. Worst case, I could always tell to one of them to maintain a certain speed. I could tell him to maintain a certain speed until, let's say, 5 miles, right? And then he can continue reducing, or tell him to reduce earlier. But I would like to leave it up to the pilots because there's a lot of involved, getting the aircraft ready for the approach, putting on the landing gear. So trying to mess with the speed is kind of small work for the pilot. It seems easy as ATC to just assign speeds, but since they're flying by themselves, it's kind of a lot of work. Okay, so at threshold 120, you're 7 miles from Daddy. Maintain 3000 until established. Fly heading 170. Cleared ILS 19 left.
Maintain 3000, right 170 and cleared LS 19 left. Threshold 120.
Okay, so he seems to swerve left and right a little. Threshold 101, confirm you on the ILS for 19 left.
Confirmed for ILS 19 left, threshold 101.
101, it appears you're aiming for 19 center. Can you confirm that you're approaching the runway far to the left? So it looks like he's kind of aiming for this one, right?
Just double checking my charts right now. I am plugged in for 19 left for threshold 101.
Okay, it appears right now you're aiming for 19 center, but you're also kind of in between. Yeah, okay. Do you have visual with the runway right now?
I don't because of cloud coverage, but I will get her in on 19 left, no problem.
Okay, yeah, just threshold 101, continue approach until you have visual contact with runway 19 left.
Roger, continue approach until I have 19 left, threshold 101.
So right now I'm coordinating with tower that I'm not going to hand off until he has visual. Same with 120, right? I want to wait until he's handed off.
Threshold 120, we're established on the ILS 19 left.
Threshold 120,
Incoming chat message.
continue approach in number 2.
Continue approach number 2, threshold 120.
Threshold 101, runway is now 12 o'clock, 10 miles. You should be able to start your glide path now.
Roger, I'm just capturing the glide slope right now for threshold 101 for 19 left.
Roger, threshold 101, contact Dallas Tower 120.25.
Over to tower, threshold 101, thank you.
Threshold 120, reduce speed 170 for sequence.
Reducing 170, threshold 120.
Handoff approved.
Threshold 120, contact Dallas Tower 120.25.
120.25, threshold 120, have a great day, bye-bye.
Okay, this was pretty cool. We held threshold 101, having, you know, I wouldn't say issues, just I wanted to make sure he's actually approaching it, but it seems like he's aiming for it right now. I couldn't hand off the second one. That would be not really nice. I reduced the speed to match his. The minimum I can give as a radar controller is 170. But that should be fine. Right now they're 5 miles compared to, I don't know, it was like 220. This way they come in nicely separated. So he seems to be tower center, I'm not sure. Okay, a question we have, as ATC and during heavy inbound traffic, do you prefer vertical or horizontal separation, or it's better to be a composite separation all the way? So that's a good question. I prefer horizontal, which means, you know, next to each other. Just simply because then you have a nice chain of aircrafts. For example, like this, right? If we would have a third one over here, another 5 miles out. As you can see, we had them both on top of each other, but then at some point you either have to slow down one tremendously to squeeze them back behind, or you have to extend his vectors. However, if you have, let's say, multiple, right, 3 or 4 aircraft, and the second one, you have to extend his downwards. What do you do with the third and the fourth, right? Because they come in nicely. Now they have to extend further as well, just to be behind him. Or you extend number 2 even further, so you can squeeze in 3 and 4, because he was just too high. I think you get the point, right? If you have them all on top of each other, kind of, then it gets hard to separate them, because eventually they have to be laterally separated on the ILS. They can't be on top of each other unless they use a different runway. And then the third method would be speed, right? That's pretty much, speed is your tool to establish horizontal separation. Alright guys, I'm gonna wrap up for now, since we will have inbounds over inbounds and never ends. Thanks everyone for tuning in. This live stream will be saved. You can always view it on our YouTube channel. And yeah, stay tuned. We're probably gonna have another jump seat eventually soon. And again, thanks everyone for tuning in. Have a nice night.
All right, everyone. We hope you enjoyed the second edition of the Jump Seat. Aldo, thank you so much for talking with us about your real life experience as ATC and also what you do here at IVAO. Really appreciated. Everyone, stay tuned for other Jump Seat sessions to come. Remember the America's Continental Online Day that will take place on April 17th. And once again, everybody, thank you for joining us and keep the IVAO spirit.